All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today, before we start the show, I would like to bring up some business things that have kind of been on my mind so that you can know where to get more Where Am I to Go. First off, I'd like to talk about the Facebook page at Where Am I to Go podcast. It's on Facebook, and we've been posting some wonderful pictures of some of the places that we've been and some of the adventures that we've had. Not everything that we go and do is made into a podcast, and so we take pictures at different places and post those pictures so that you guys can enjoy some of the different places we've been. Also, I really am interested in listener feedback. I have an email address at whereamiitogopodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is whereamiitogopodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear some of the listeners' comments and some of their ideas of places that might be interesting to visit and go and do. Today, we are in Cawker City, Kansas. Of all places, what could be in Cawker City, Kansas? Oh, that's right, the world's largest ball of twine. we came through here last year on our way to Mardi Gras, and on the way, we stopped by here and we did a little yoga shoot in front of the world's largest ball of twine, and Linda, the belle of the ball, showed up. And before I knew it, Steve, are you the editor? What's your position?
No.
You're the.
I'm the historian.
The historian. He shows up and starts snapping pictures. And before it was all done, we'd taken a tour of the town. We got led into the museum. It's a small little museum that used to be the old library. We were going to spend, probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes here to look at the ball of twine, and we ended up with about an hour and a half by the time it was all said and done.
Marvelous.
And we had so much fun that we decided we were going to come back. I called Steve. He said he'd set it up for us. We're going to talk a little bit about Kansas. We're going to talk a little bit about Cawker City. We're going to talk a little bit about the new Monster Museum that's opening. We've got Julie and Matt here, and they are just opening up a new museum here in town. We will do a separate podcast on that. But in general, we're just going to kind of have a conversation and see where it goes. We've been enjoying our morning so far, so let's get with it. We've got Linda, the belle of the ball. We've got Julie. We've got Matt. We've got Steve, the historian. My Linda's here, and I'm here. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with this. I've always said, traveling through Kansas, that it's one of my favorite places, and I always get sideways looks from people. And they say, what in the world's in Kansas? And I says, everything that ever happened anywhere in the world happened in Kansas. And just as a little proof of that, we were driving through a town yesterday on our way here to Cawker City, and we see this sign, Carl Atwood somebody was born here. So we had to look that up on the Google, Wikipedia, to find out who this Carl, I can't remember what his last name was. Any of you guys know who I'm talking about?
Where were you?
North of here.
Kevin Saunders.
Oh, Kevin Saunders. Oh, a very good friend.
No, that's another town. I'm talking about the one before that. There it is, right there.
Kerwin, place of Carl A. Hatch.
Yeah, Carl A. Hatch. Who in the world's Carl A. Hatch? He must be somebody famous, right? So we look it up. We find out that he was a senator from New Mexico in 1892. So, that's their claim to fame. But as you drive through Kansas, every town, the next one
Kevin
we came
Saunders.
to, which is just short from here, it's Kevin Saunders.
Yes. World champion wheelchair athlete.
There you go, wheelchair athlete. The guy was born right there in just 8 miles down from here. And every town you come to in Kansas has something famous that happened, and they're more than willing to post it. In fact, you guys had your own movie star here, didn't you?
Yeah, that's her.
Right up there.
Right up there.
Claire Windsor. But she was born Ola Kronk.
Oh. Right here in Cawker City.
She just grew up here.
She grew up here. Yeah, that's kind of a long story, but yeah, I started doing the research. All the movie magazines, she claimed Cawker as being where she was born, but in fact, she was born in the little town of Marvin, which is Glade today, which is
By
up
Kerwood.
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's south
Not far
of
from here.
Phillipsburg. Yeah, but she was still 2 years old when the family moved here to Cawker, and so it was easier to say she was from Cawker because that's the only place she knew,
Right,
growing
right,
up.
Right.
But
So you guys have it doubly. You've got the movie star and the ball of twine. Now you guys are going to have to look up this movie star. I'm looking at a poster here in the museum because we're sitting around a table having this conversation because it's cold outside. But she had to have been a movie star maybe just as sound was coming out, or was she silent movie?
well, she got started in 21. Her first films were with Lois Weber, one of the few women directors out there in Hollywood at the time. And then she was picked up by Goldwyn. And then when Goldwyn and Metro and Mayer merged in 24, it became Metro Goldwyn Mayer, and she signed up. She was one of the few, one of the first to get signed up as an MGM star.
She did some after the talkies.
Okay.
Yeah, just a handful.
Yes.
The problem was that the industry was changing so quickly because of sound coming in 29. She signed up with MGM right at the beginning, and if she hadn't have signed up, she probably would have gone further because she was, in that contract, and it restricted what she could do. And MGM was farming her out to the other studios to make money off of her rather than putting her in MGM's films. She did do a handful of really big MGM films for the time. She ended up being in 38 movies altogether.
Wow.
And she's had some family that has come back to Cawker City.
I was going to ask if she came back to Cawker to retire. Or...
No, just some family.
The closest she got was when they had the opening of Dodge City, the film with Errol Flynn. Back in the 30s. She went to Dodge City. She was one of the invited guests. They had a train that went from Los Angeles to Dodge City. And she was on the train the whole way and got to participate. But that's as close as she ever got to actually coming back to Kansas.
And thanks to Steve and his researching on her, now we know her and we can claim her and we're happy.
Yeah, but I did not see the sign claiming her at the front so that everybody had to Wikipedia and find out who she was. I know going across the interstate years and years ago, you'd come from Denver, and as soon as you crossed the Kansas line, there was a great big poster that said world's largest gopher. And then you went a little bit further, and Miss America 1921 was from here. And so I mean, and John Glenn visited in 1968, or it just kind of goes all the way down the interstate. Every town in Kansas has its claim to fame. And it's really cool.
And we like to think that all of these important people are important. But we have a lot of people that aren't famous that have been very important to our history. That's everywhere you go, but we just tend to gravitate toward famous people.
So I have a question. Where did this wonderful ball of twine begin?
The ball of twine? You're wanting to go there before we finish Kansas?
Yes, I'm very curious. I can hardly wait.
A man built it. The beginnings of it in his barn just northeast of Cawker City, and no idea if it would still be in existence and that people would still be coming, because he died in the 1970s. So
and people were coming to his place at that time to see it, or
at that time he just had these loose pieces of twine that had been around bales of hay and bales of straw, and at that time, we didn't have big cattle lots. We didn't need those great big bales that are along the highway now. They made little rectangular loaf ones.
Right.
And they had twine on it. And have you ever tried to hang anything up on a hook? It's going to end up at your feet.
Right.
rather dangerous to walk around. So he rolled some into a little ball, some more into a little ball, and well, why not put it together? And would you believe I can tell you the list of the 90 people who have twine in the middle of the ball that had given him their twine. When the farmers saw that, a place it could go, they took it to him out in the country in his barn.
And he was from Kansas.
Yes. He was,
So he's famous.
Yes, see, he's famous too. Frank Stoeber.
Awesome.
Okay. And I think when I was here last time, you said that he had built this ball of twine so big that he couldn't use his barn or he couldn't get it out of the barn.
Well,
what was
supposedly
that
they
part?
took the barn door off.
Yeah, it just, he needed
Barely,
to get it out
yeah.
of there because it was going to not fit out,
Yeah.
to fit through the door. So they got it out just in time.
And our city fathers, the leaders in the community, went out, and we have pictures that show them loading it up and bringing it to town. And one of the things I like to say is, he brought it to town, and would you believe he left it? Now that was planned, but yes, he had to. It couldn't keep growing in his barn. It had to get out of there.
Well, and then Kansas was celebrating its centennial, and that was the
That's-
real reason.
That's why he brought it to town, and it was in a parade and all of this, and
So he had it on a big trailer for a year or something.
well, no, they brought it.
Yeah,
in a
they showed it in the parade over in Beloit, and then right next to the post office, there was a floor from a building that they had torn down, and they set it there so that people could see it. And it was, they thought maybe a year it'll stay there, and they built a little metal shed over it, the first shed, and people just kept talking about it, and it just sort of took off from there. And so they ended up asking him, wouldn't you like to let us keep it here? It seems to be an interesting attraction.
Inspiration for sure.
Yeah.
And he added twine to it still until he died.
And when did he die?
1974,
Oh, okay.
I believe.
I think that's right. I should have.
Yes.
Oh, no,
I'm
that's-
trying to think,
Close is close enough.
The year I was
And,
born, so.
and basically it just sat there and threw a couple of covers and all. And then we started adding it once a year. We had a twine-a-thon, which will be this year, Friday, August the 20th, I believe it is. And last year we didn't get to have it, so I took twine down there that evening by myself and added a little bit of twine because
I'm surprised there wasn't a.
well, we weren't allowed to do anything.
Yeah, but
at that
sometimes
time.
civil disobedience
Oh, well,
on things
yes.
like that just accidentally happen. Everybody
Oh.
shows up and do it anyway.
And a lot of people did come when they shouldn't have been maybe traveling so much, but they did. But I wasn't even allowed to keep the guest register book there. The city said no, because everybody would be touching it,
Right.
And then, but when people would give me a call or an email, sometimes I just went and handed twine out of my car window, or a few people I was with over this summer, last summer, and into the fall, and with Steve's assistance last summer and for the fall, it wore a mask. We created a mask. I had a blue twin sheet and white cord around it, and people loved taking their picture with it. And of course, then they could go to the side and they didn't have to have a mask. But it was part of 2020.
Right.
Was wearing masks, and we still are, pretty much. And but then I had to take the mask down because the 1st of October it turns into a giant jack-o'-lantern.
Oh,
It's
so you guys decorate it for a jack-o'-lantern at Halloween.
Yeah.
Then do you put a little white head on top and dress it in red for Santa Claus?
No, a little bit too much. Some have said they thought they could rig up something and we could put a big Santa hat on it, but we haven't done anything like that.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I think is really cool is, well, my experience with the ball of twine is when we pulled up here last year, we come up to the ball of twine, and the first thing you notice is it smells like twine. Is it kind of a, what's that smell? It's kind of a,
It's a rope smell.
it's a rope smell, yeah.
Yes.
But it must be something that they put on the rope, or is that just the smell
Well,
of
yes, that
cycle
would
naturally?
be part of it. It's from the leaves of the hemp tree or hemp plants, and I'm sure that when they're making the twine, there's some chemicals and some things probably put on it.
I don't know if they put creosote on
That's
there.
what it smells like, is
I-
creosote.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
And you can smell that from as soon as you park, you notice that
It's
smell. It's
there.
like it never really airs out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe it doesn't air out because you keep adding
We keep
pieces
adding.
of twine. But what we got here, we're standing there looking at this ball of twine, and I need to describe this ball of twine. It's what, probably 12 feet tall, 12 foot in
It has to be
circumference?
about 12, getting up to 12, and it's over 45, about 45 feet around circumference.
It's 45
But
feet in circumference.
It's something that is just simply fun,
It
and
is fun.
and people
It's really cool.
can't believe it. They don't know why he had the twine. I had one lady said, well, you say he kept adding twine as he got it. Why did he keep buying twine? You know, the concept of it having been used. And this man had lived through the 30s, and you didn't throw anything away. You might need it.
Right. Well, and if he's feeding a lot of hay bales, and they were all covered with the twine,
Yeah.
and like you said, you know, I've been on farms and that kind of stuff.
It's the smell.
What do you do with the stinking twine? You know, I mean, you hang it up and hang it up and hang it up, and you end up with this great big gob of twine. And then what do you do with it? You burn it or
Yes,
whatever,
this is-
because you can't do anything with
This is what they used to do with it then. After a while, when they had too much, they would soak it with the fuel oil.
Oh, okay, and
burn
use it for fire starters?
Like in the spring, they would do it. And that way it would, you know, they could do it in a vacant cow lot where the cattle had been, or in the green, you know, in the spring. But like I said, they didn't have, I don't know how many, I remember going out to the farm there and buying cream. There was milk cows there, so they had, but we're talking in the 50s and 60s, and even up
Right.
into the 70s. I mean, they didn't have but just a few head of cattle, maybe for their milk and for them to eat and maybe sell a few, but they didn't, it wasn't a big thing like
But
numbers.
still, if you're feeding 20 ton of hay a year, and you got 30 bales to a ton, that's what, 600 bales? And so you've got 600 bales with 2 pieces of twine on it that are each total length of about 4 foot, 5
Yes.
foot. You know, that ends up to be a lot of twine every
So
year.
this is why the area farmers were glad to have a place to put their twine. They could deliver it to him and he would put it on. And his family didn't even realize this was going on out in the barn. You know, because his children were grown and gone. They were already away from home.
Wow.
And so it's...
What an inheritance. I
It is.
inherited a ball of twine.
Yes. I had someone yesterday that came and brought the couple, they brought their 2 children, and she had grown up diagonally. How far is it to Jewel? I don't know. Jewel, Kansas. And she had seen it, but they left the area when she was 9. So what did they do during spring break? But they load their children up and they come back to where she lived as a child, and she had to bring them to the ball of twine, and they were so happy. And I'll tell children, you have made it the biggest it's ever been. And last week...
Now, we need to back up just a little bit. This is another part of our experience. While we're here, Linda shows up with a ball of twine and cuts us off about a 1 foot piece and says, tie it on. And so she's still, I don't know how many balls of twine, you know, the store-bought balls of twine Linda's provided for the outside of this ball of twine. But
I don't have to do it very often now. People find it, or car dealer, or tractor farm supply places, they have some they want to get rid of. and I might find some on my porch at home, you know. It's just so fascinating. They can't understand it.
In fact, Steve just walked over and grabbed himself a great big ball of twine.
That's our display.
That's what they look like when you buy them.
Bronco binder twine, mildew proofy.
Yeah, so see, it has things
insect
on
and,
it.
and rodent repellent. Yeah, so it's probably got a creosote coating. Or,
And there are some that they're twice as tall, and they, you know, a little more, but.
And they're 600 feet per pound, 90 pounds tensile strength. Okay, but you've got, over there it said you had 20,000 pounds of
But that's time to be renewed. It's like about 27. And until last year, there were 3 years that we added an awfully lot of twine.
Huh.
And like somebody will call or email and I'll go. And while I'm there, 2 or 3 other cars stop.
Yeah, we were amazed. You know, I was thinking, yeah, how busy can the ball of twine be? But when we were doing that yoga shoot last year, when we first came here, and the siren
yes.
went off right at noon while we were doing our yoga deal.
A bit of more of rural America. You hear it really loud in your place now.
Yeah. I was actually just telling my sister about that this morning.
I'm sorry.
Tell us about the siren.
This is something from
Well, it started
when
with
I
my
was a
grandpa.
child. Yes.
My grandpa. See, Richardson Manufacturer is right there on the south end of the block there, and my grandpa had a whistle, a steam whistle that would go off at noon, and we still have the clock that he had, you know, jerry rigged so that it would go off at the proper time. But that's where the whistle started, was because the workers would know when it was noon and they could stop.
Seems like they should have made it noon 30 so they knew when to come back.
Yeah, I don't know whether, you know, some cities have another whistle at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
I think it was always just the noon whistle.
Here.
I don't remember.
I don't remember here, but growing up 8 miles away, yes, we had it twice a day at least. And
See, we don't have big churches with the big church bells that ring at noon
Right.
every day, you know.
So the what did your grandpa manufacture?
Farm implements,
Oh, really?
yeah.
and
Okay.
that's still.
I was going to say,
being
you
done
still
there.
got a farm
It's
implement
still there.
manufacturing place over here, don't you?
Yeah.
I walked
it
by
was-
this
it was-
That was its
yeah.
original.
Yeah, my grandpa started it in 1908, and then we sold out to Sunflower over at Beloit in 1988, and then they've sold to Agco, so it's part of the Agco conglomerate or whatever.
Okay.
But this is just something that it's rural America, small town America.
Right.
Where the noon whistle goes off.
See, and we have a 9 o'clock whistle in the town right next to where we're from.
It seems to me like we had one again in the evening too. I know we had it 5 or 6, and you know, as a child, time just doesn't. You didn't remember, you know, but you knew it was time.
When the whistle blew, Paul Harvey was on.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've actually talked to people who didn't know who Paul Harvey was, and I can't believe that somebody would not know who Paul Harvey
That's
was.
missing.
Was
I
he
might be
born
the
in
last
Kansas?
generation in these.
I know that he was in Assyria. Where did Paul Harvey actually grow up? I know he has an association with Assyria or Salina.
You know, I don't think I knew that.
I know he's
Yeah.
talked about Oshkosh. Where's Oshkosh?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
I know that he's talked. I remember him talking a bit about that, but I'm not sure why. And he was in Chicago, is where he was syndicated
Right.
from.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know where he was born. But if it was Kansas, I guarantee you, there's a sign as you come into town telling you.
He, I like
Tulsa,
listening to
Oklahoma.
Oh,
Paul
Tulsa,
Harvey.
Oklahoma. That's
Yeah,
right.
Oklahoma.
Okay. Yep.
But people come from everywhere to see the ball of twine.
Now you've had it in movies too.
Oh, yes, yes.
What movies?
Well, Beethoven's third which was, there was the Beethoven,
Oh, right,
Beethoven,
right.
Beethoven's third.
With the
and-
St. Bernard dog.
Yeah, St. Bernard dog. And, of course, they make reference to it, calling it the second largest ball of twine in National Lampoon's Vacation.
Okay.
And then
I was going to say, it seemed to me that it had
Johnson's
something to do.
Vacation. Sometimes they call it a ball of string or a ball of yarn. And it's, you know, it was on Jeopardy. I liked that they got the answer correct, that we had a ball of twine. And
My dad was mayor when was the New York, let's see, what's the, not the New York Times, what was
Post.
the what's the financial,
Wall
anyway,
Street Journal?
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street, Wall Street.
They had a guy come out here and wrote up a story making, it was a derogatory article
Yeah.
about the ball of twine. And they got inundated with people saying, you know, this, you know, they didn't. It's a fun thing.
Well,
you know?
It is.
And you know, he went by the. He wrote that, you know, there's nothing more to do out here in Kansas than to wrap a ball of twine. And so, you know, my dad, the TV crew of several of the stations in the area up in Nebraska and here in Kansas. Got him on tape saying, you know, well, they should come here during harvest and see how hard the people work.
right, absolutely. No, and the other one that caused a bit of trouble, I guess, though it wasn't the ball of twine, it was Cawker City. But John Ritter in the movie, Hero at Large.
Yeah.
Hero at Large. And there was, we don't have a pennant now up, do we? A
No.
Cawker City green and white pennant. And he said several times he was from Cawker City, Kansas. And he just thought they made that name up. And on a radio interview in Kansas City, people heard that, and
No, when he said it, where it was from, did he spell it right?
It.
Did he
Yes,
spell it?
Yes, it
Oh,
was
he
even,
spelled it right.
It was even Cawker.
Wow.
And
Because every time I try to do it, put it into Google Maps, it always spells it Cocker.
right.
Oh,
Right. but just a quick back to Linda here looked up on Google about Paul Harvey, and it said that he had a radio station that had studios in Salina, Kansas. Salina,
Yep.
Kansas.
Yeah.
Okay, and then from there he moved to a new casting job at KOMA in Oklahoma City. So he does have a connection to Kansas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, because you had said Salina.
Yep.
I'm going to say it wrong again.
But we've had people come from everywhere. There this morning, before we came down here, you know, what was there? There was Wisconsin, Arkansas, I don't know, couple other states already this morning.
Why would you miss the world's ballest twine?
And I just did it. I just did an interview recently, and it's going to be in an area magazine. And the interviewer just laughed the whole time. She's lived close all of her life, and couldn't believe it. You know, there's people away from here know about it, but Kansans don't necessarily know about the ball of
really?
twine. No, I think they're embarrassed.
Well, this
You'll
is
find
always
that everywhere.
Oh yes.
You'll find that everywhere. You know, you always know about the Great Pyramids, and you always know about, you know, the Eiffel Tower, but you don't know what's in your own backyard. I grew up in Virginia, and a lot of people didn't know, you know, half the stuff that was in our state. You know, and that's the way I'm sure
Oh, yes,
the folks
it's
are here,
everywhere.
is that, you know, you just don't know what's in your own backyard because it's so common to you because you see about it all the time, and you just don't think twice about it. But then, you know, then you.
But
get
yet
somewhere
when
else and you're like,
families
oh, wow,
come,
yeah.
they always come back. They always want their picture taken there.
Uh-huh.
And that is funny. And this woman, you know, she had seen it all these years and as a child. And people do this. But when I had two gentlemen sign that they were from Antarctica, I thought Mongolia was a stretch that people came. And they were young fellas, and they worked there about half a year and come back to the States when it's the worst, and they go back. And I asked them, what was your jobs? And both of them gave me these lots of words. And one of them said, cook. and the other one was a mechanic. And, everybody knows about it. And they like, it's in TV programs, podcasts.
Right.
People come and do interviews and we talk. And I do a lot with online stories that they want to put out there.
This must be an awesome paying job for you to be
It
the
is.
belle of the ball.
It is. My husband was still alive, and he said I should have said no, and I didn't when I agreed to do this in the early 1990s, and for over 10 years yet, we wore out 2 weed eaters weeding around, because you can't get it all just with a mower, and it's a volunteer job with lots of love.
One of those ones that they couldn't pay you enough to do, but
Right.
you do it every day for free.
I love people, so there's so many interesting people, and they tell me so many interesting stories when they come. They come for reasons that we wouldn't necessarily think about it. I thought one that was kind of fun was last fall. This couple was here, and they had met on a dating app, and one of the questions I believe she asked her prospective dates was, if you drove past the big ball of twine, what would you do? And she had been fascinated by it for many years. I think they were from South Dakota, or maybe it was North Dakota, and he obviously answered he would pull over and stop and see it, because for her birthday then they came to Cawker City to see the ball of twine. That one was a different one. I mean, bucket list.
Yeah.
Students just out of high school, bucket list.
It was always on my bucket list. Like I said, I think when you're coming across the interstate through southern Kansas, it says, there's a turnoff that actually says world's largest ball of twine. And you guys are how far from, Interstate 70?
Interstate 70.
Yeah.
And Interstate 35.
And how far are you guys from Interstate 70? And they've got it advertised down there on a sign that if you want to go to the world's largest ball of twine, it's only 200 miles north or something, and you're going...
Not quite that much.
It's not quite that far, but...
But you're going,
yes,
who's going to pull off and go see the world's largest ball of twine? But it's always been on my list. So when we were coming last year, when we were going to Mardi Gras, I said, we're going across Kansas and we're finding the world's largest ball of twine. I mean, it was a destination thing to come see on our way to someplace else.
Agreed.
We'll see.
And that's why you're here?
Right, yeah. I was working in a hospital in Richmond, Virginia, and got kind of burned out and ready to just figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. So I'd always said I wanted to drive Route 66, drive across America, see the weird little offbeat roadside attractions. And so
The blue whale's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But, and I joked, I was like, I'm going to stop at every world's largest ball of twine there is, right? Now, of course, I didn't go to see the one in Minnesota that Weird Al sings about, but I did come through here. And when I was planning out my trip, I looked up, and the sole reason why I came to Kansas was to see this ball of twine. And I came into town and ended up staying the night in the inn across the way, the old
The gas station.
gas station inn, and here we are. Saw that there was a building for sale, and just decided this is where I needed to be. So yeah, and the only reason why I came to the state of Kansas was to see the ball of twine, and I was on Route 66 in Oklahoma City and drove up from there.
And how far out of the way is that?
It's an all-day, 8-hour trip.
Okay.
And then from there, I went into Nebraska to see Carhenge. I don't know if you've seen.
Oh yeah, we've been to Carhenge.
Yeah.
Actually, we're on our way to Truckhenge,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is just down the road here in Topeka. Yeah, tomorrow we've got to we're going to do the Evel Knievel Museum
Okay.
and the Combat Museum, and they've got Truckhenge there, and we're spending the night. It's got a campground, so we're spending the night at Truckhenge.
All right.
So-
I'll have to add that because I saw a lot of hinges on my way out here.
Well,
You
and
know.
we did go see they've got a Stonehenge recreation on the Columbia River in Washington. And that one's really
man.
cool. It's a World War I vet memorial is
Yeah.
what the guy did it for. But it's exact reproduction of Stonehenge. And we did a couple of yoga videos there. But yeah, I'm trying to hit all the henges I can find right now.
Right.
And I
There's
saw
one-
truck henge, so there we go.
There's one right outside of Chicago, and Chicago's in Illinois, or not Chicago, but St. Louis. So
Okay.
so St. Louis is in Missouri, so it's I guess the Illinois side
Okay.
of it, or Indiana, whichever state is.
I think it's
my
Illinois,
geography isn't the best, but it's Coffeyville or Coleyville or something like that, and there's an ancient. Some Native American mounds that were done,
Oh,
and
okay.
they made a henge out of wood, so it's wood hinge.
Oh,
and you
really?
can still see they've actually put the posts back, but they found where all the little posts used to be, and it lines up exactly with the meteorological, and the stars and all that kind of stuff, and it's amazing, and it's been there, 1,200 years or something like that, and so that's.
I don't know if that's
Really
on our
cool.
way or not. We're going. Our next one's going to be the after Topeka. We're gonna spend a day in Independence, and then we're gonna go to the Ark Encounter.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
And that's
Kentucky.
in northern
Yeah,
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're kind of excited about that one too.
And there's a lot of people that like to see things.
Yeah.
And they, for different reasons. I had two ladies wanted to meet me, and I knew they were from Shreveport, Louisiana. And they said they were celebrating their 50th birthday. Well, where are you going from here? I asked, of course. Well, they turned and said, we have to get back home. We came here. We were their destination. Mostly it's because they're going someplace and they see what there is to see, look up to see what there is to see. But it's crazy that sometimes we are a destination, and yet people around here,
Well, and Cawker's is a really small town.
right.
I mean, I think I walked all the way around it this morning in about an hour. I kind of
It's
hit.
a 1 mile square.
Okay, and that, I don't think I walked all the way around it. I probably only did about a mile and a half this morning, but yeah. So anyway, we did that, and then you've got over here in your park. You've got another gazebo, and weren't you saying that the ball of twine was housed in that for a while until it outgrew that gazebo?
They
Right.
picked it up. It was where the ball is now.
Okay.
But when they were building that cover for it, rather than discarding it, I mean, it's
Right.
still a nice redwood
Yes,
gazebo.
very nice.
So it was lifted with a crane and moved and put in place there. They had put that,
Oh, okay.
they put that cement down to do it.
So this ball just keeps outgrowing its surroundings.
And
What are you
that's
guys
why
going to do
now-
when it infringes on the highway?
I don't think that's quite impossible. That's rather impossible.
Well, the picture over there shows the women in front of it. They're the ones who built it back in 1884. Actually, what happened was that the men here in town had started a magazine subscription club, and that was kind of the beginnings of a library. But over the years, they lost half the books that they had purchased. And so when the women became more numerous in town, they took it upon themselves to build the library. And it cost all of $800, which they raised themselves. They were always so proud that this was not a Carnegie library. And they even paid the extra $25 for the gingerbread. So it was $825. But they laid the cornerstone on Thanksgiving Day of 1884, and it was done in about April of the following year. But they waited until the 4th of July to have the dedication ceremonies, and then unfortunately it rained voluminously. They ended up having to hold most of the service. There was a skating rink over by where the Baptist church is today. But since 1885, it's been the library until 1971. That was when the town took the auditorium and they converted it into the public library and then city offices and then a work area for the city crew. And so the library moved out and the city gave this over to a panel of a board here in town, and that was the beginnings of the Historical Society, and that was when we celebrated the centennial of Cawker City. And just last year, this year we're celebrating 151 years
Oh, wow.
of the founding of Cawker City.
Well, the museum's housed in this library now,
Right.
and it's small. We're probably 15 foot wide and 25 or 30 foot long, something like
Yeah.
that. It's not a really
Yeah.
big library, but you said it was built by women.
They raised the money.
Oh, they raised the money.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but it's a limestone building. We're in what's called the post-rock area. There's a certain layer of the land. Kansas was at one time under the ocean,
Okay.
and so there's a layer that is particular. It has it's a sandstone, but it has an orange streak in the middle, and that's a layer of iron that deposited while it was still underwater. And that area, the iron actually makes that much harder. And so this
Okay.
layer is about between 8 and 10 inches thick, and it covers a large swath of Kansas. And they dig it out, and they originally used them for the posts for the fences because there were no trees out here.
Oh.
But it was a good, easy material to work with, and so they of course used it for the buildings because there wasn't a lot of lumber out here.
Huh. And then another point I wanted to get to with you is I found the story of how Cawker got its name. That's another interesting point that I definitely want to bring up. Again, it has kind of an interesting spelling, Cawker, and the
He's
way
right
it
up
got
there.
its name is go for it, Steve.
Okay, well, I'm pointing to the pictures of the four gentlemen that were the investors that got together in Milwaukee. And each of the investors were to put up $15,000, and then they were going to come out here to Kansas and found a town. And
What was their reasoning for founding the town?
make money.
Okay.
Sell the land.
Oh, okay,
you know,
okay. So
when you can take a parcel of land, for pennies on the dollar as a homestead,
Right.
you can subdivide it into little lots
Okay.
and sell it for a lot of money.
Okay.
It was a get-rich-quick scheme
Okay.
in the day. Didn't quite work out that way, but anyway, what happened was that Colonel Cawker had just turned 21, and he had inherited his father's land. He was the only offspring that survived. There were four children, and he was the only one that survived to manhood. And so the land was near Milwaukee. In fact, it was within the city limits by that time. And so he had some money to play with. And the gentleman right behind him is his stepfather. Mr. Cawker's father died when he was just 2 years old. And Mr. Rice then married his mother. And so he was the second partner. And then Mr. Kashinka over to the right was in there. They were in the law and real estate business in Milwaukee. And so the three of them were together in business. And then Mr. Kashinka knew Mr. Huckle from Pennsylvania. Both of those gentlemen had lived in Towanda, Pennsylvania. And so that was the connection there. And so they got together and pledged their money, and then they needed to come up with a name. And each one of them had a name for the town. We could have been Riceburg, Kashinkaville or Huckleville. And first, okay, because Cawker and Rice had a familiar relationship when they played a game of 7-Up, which was a normal way of whenever there was a tie for an election, they always played a game of 7-Up. It was just the thing to do. And so they split up in teams. Cawker was with Kashinka, and then Rice and Huckle were together. So the 2 against 2. They played it the first hand, and Cawker and Kashinka won. And then so they played each other, and Cawker came out on top. And the great thing is there's not another Cawker City in the entire world.
And it was all done because of a card game.
Right.
That's how it came. That's how we came to be.
Isn't that just amazing? Yeah. I think it's kind of a fun story.
Oh yeah.
And then we ended up with this museum, and we got a grant.
Yeah,
And
Heritage
yeah,
Trust Fund grant to have the repointing done, and we also had some foundation work done because the floor there were always termites. That was a big problem, and so we've dug out below here and put a cement pad underneath here to keep the moisture out. It is so much nicer in here now. We had black mold growing everywhere, and it was it needed a lot of work. But now we're up and running, and we're working on another building, which is much bigger, and because we've got lots of stuff in storage.
Yeah, this is kind of small quarters, but
it's
very nicely
there were
laid
lots
out.
of shelves, and when I came to town, it was still here, and it's where I checked library books out, and people that grew up here and used to come here to the library, they'll say, well, they sat right over here, so they had the light, and they would sit and read Nancy Drew and different books and all. But when Steve was doing the interior here, was it 7 layers of paper or 10? I've forgotten now.
No,
but anyway, he stacked them up, so we have. The ladies kept meticulous records of everything, and so he knew about when. And this is the reason, as you look around the top, that was some of the.
That is the original wallpaper.
The original wallpaper.
That was the
It was
original.
red. Now it's faded.
Yes, of course,
but
it's.
what looks pink was actually a red, and the beautiful frieze at the top. The funny thing is, all the subsequent layers, the tie rods. They started, the wall over there in that corner started to separate, and so they had to put in tie rods. And this is the only layer of wallpaper that was on the wallpaper that didn't have to be cut to go around the tie rod.
And he's left several spots of the old wallpaper up in here so you can see just what it looked like.
Yeah,
it's a really decorative wallpaper.
Yeah, the wallpaper is a solid color. It's a frieze that is really neat, and we do want to have it redone, reproduced is what I'm saying, and we want to get it put back originally the way it was. Now that all the cabinets here were cut up, everything what you see now is the way it was originally.
Okay.
So
the bookshelf, that's a beautiful bookshelf.
Yes.
I haven't even mentioned the fact we have this rock collection, and that was here originally. And in fact, that's why these cabinets are the way they are. The rock collection is down below with the books up above. And they kept running out of book shelving space, and that's why they kept adding more and more shelving. But in 1911, they took the cabinets from the east side of the building and on the north, and they stacked them. These little interesting corner cabinets.
Right.
They went all the way to the ceiling. And then the beautiful inscription, Cabinet Gift of G.W. Chapman. The top of that actually touched the ceiling there on the west side. But when I took off the wallpaper, you could see exactly on the shadows on the plaster where everything was originally. And there were enough parts of the original cabinets left that I was able to reconstruct what was missing.
That's cool.
Yes.
Wow.
That is just.
And then something else, you guys have a really cool little town park, but off to the side of the town park, you've got a horse water.
Always more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's hear the story.
Okay.
And it's got a really cool inscription, so we're going to hear the story.
Well, the Cawkers, when they came out here, two of their daughters, well, actually they had three daughters. One didn't make it, and she died as an infant. The two daughters that were born here, the first one, Pauline, was the first child born in Cawker City. And then a few years later, then Lenora was born, and she never married. And when the family then moved back to Milwaukee, she was into taking care of animals, and in fact became the dog catcher, as it were, for Milwaukee. And so her job then was to take care of the animals. She turned the house in the barn into a hospital for animals. And she walked around with a pistol so that if your horse went down, she would finish it off and get rid of it humanely for you. We don't think about these huge cities having all these animals that are just running loose, or everybody had a horse, everybody had a milk cow, chickens, a lot of things. But anyway, so she really devoted her entire life to taking care of animals. And when in 1914, she decided to give the city a fountain. And what it is a horse watering trough on one side, and then on the other there's a fountain for people, and then down below there are two little shallow dishes that are filled with water for dogs and cats. And then the inscription above the portion where the people can drink from, it says, "A merciful man is merciful to his beast." And then on the other side, where the horses are, there's a big plaque that says, given in memory of Colonel Cawker for founding the town.
And it's a really neat fountain. This thing stands probably 5 foot tall, and it's another 5 foot wide, and it's got a horse trough on the one side that's about the size of a bathtub, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's all designed for watering everybody. It's just cool.
It's made of Vermont granite.
Okay, I was going to say, what's it made out of?
Here.
Oh, really?
It's,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
what 210? Well, I can't remember. I've seen amounts. I can't think.
I don't remember exactly.
So it must have been brought here by rail.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then in 1914, they would have been probably right there at that, whether it was brought in by a truck or by one of the merciful beasts.
Well,
We did have.
I know they had to get a company from Lincoln, Nebraska to actually do the installation. I do remember that part of it. But we had rail service here. In 1879, the railroad came to town.
Oh, wow.
So it definitely came here by rail. But getting it from the depot to where it stands today was definitely quite a task. But in 1914, we already had cars. 1906, we had one of the earliest car dealerships in the area.
Oh, really?
Mr. Hudkins. And he did a land office business. He was selling Fords. He had several varieties there at the beginning, but then he took over the Ford agency, and he became so wealthy. He ended up moving to Salina and had a big car agency there. But yeah, what made his shop, really do a lot of business was the fact that he had a garage where you could get them worked on. See, a lot of places sold cars, but you couldn't get repairs done, and he had a garage in association with his agency, and it worked out really well for him.
Well, cool. So you guys have been booming big time for 150 years. It sounds like rail came here early and all of that. That's just way neat, you know. But it's still a really small town. This town has that small town feel. In fact, a lot of Kansas, coming through this northern part the way that we have, Kansas just kind of has a small town feel still. Are you guys still really community oriented? I know, like where we're from, we have community. I mean, we're in a town of 1,800 people. Community's there, but it seems like it's also not. You know, you have the local theater, and they put on concerts or something like that, and you maybe get 100 people to show up. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody would rather sit home and watch TV or play on their computer. It seems like your lodges, the Lions Club and the Kiwanis and all those don't have anybody anymore. And it seems like community has just basically starved out. You know, it's not like it used to be where the communities would come together for the big festivals and all that kind of stuff. Is Kansas gone that way too? I mean, these towns just when I'm here, it feels different. But it's just because I'm an outsider more than likely.
When I was growing up, when they were putting in the lake, Cawker was up to 800 people. And so, you know, going through high school here, you know, I was at the tail end of the baby boom generation. So, you know, I still had, you know, a big class that, you know, now we've given up the high school here in town. They go over to Downs. So, you know, I don't remember, I haven't heard what the latest census record for Cawker is, what the number. But we've definitely gone down. We
Except
feel
for
it.
Matt moved in.
Yeah.
So you
People move through. But I mean, we still have community as we you know, we do things. I mean, like I'm wearing this Kansas Storytelling Festival. This is over in Downs. Put a plug in for our neighboring town, but I'm on the board of that too. You know, that's a yearly event. And with the lake out here, you know, we've got a lot of activities that go on out there that you know, people are all involved in. You know, we have, they tell ghost stories out there at Halloween, and they have the Indian dancers. That'll be coming up in October.
The Native American Indian Festival, October the 2nd.
You know, they start out the 1st of January. If you want to go hiking, they have a get together to go hiking the first day of the year. And the big thing, of course, is the 4th of July celebration out at the lake. The past at least 2 years, they've had the dueling pianos come in.
They're coming again this year, July the 3rd.
Oh, really?
We'll have all day long. There'll be activities, games, and all out at the lake, and then
it's really great.
The concert, and then the
huge fireworks. I mean, it's quite a show.
Wow!
So people come.
Yeah.
And last year was our first year to resurrect the Native American Indian Festival, and
That's good.
like I can't go out there. I do drama, I do different things, but I could not go out there and be a part of it. I mean, I work with it and organize it but it's only Native Americans with the papers will be. They're the dancers, they're the drummers, they tell the stories, the
public's invited, right?
Oh yes, everyone can go. And they're talking about more of the tribes with their powwows and all. It's getting to be more, because we do have a lot of Native American Indian history here, the Wakanda.
Oh, absolutely.
With the Wakanda Springs, and the Indians came in, they were using the springs for so long before the
Now, are they hot
pioneers
springs?
came. No.
They're just
Mineral springs.
Okay.
That cured everything.
Okay.
And also gave extra strength. I mean, if you're going into battle, you wanted to be able to pull your bow and.
Now, wasn't there a story about Native American princess and a prince who
Yes,
were
that's-
in love, and the father, the woman killed the man, and it's just those kind of stories that go along with it.
Well, I need to hear the story. Now
I
that
don't know
you've
it
got
well
it
enough
started,
to
Steve's
tell it.
going to have to tell it. He's a
Yeah.
historian here.
Well, there are too many versions of it. It's kind of
Give us the goriest one.
Well, I'm afraid the Romeo and Juliet story is kind of the white version, the real Indian version.
Shakespeare did some plagiarizing. Is that what you're saying?
The story that is promoted, since the white men has come out here, is that there were two competing tribes, and the son from one tribe chief and the daughter of the other competing tribe chief, fell in love, and there was a battle that took place there at the springs, and the lover was killed. It fell into the springs, and so the daughter then jumped in to be with her lover.
Forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were just in Tucumcari, did a Route 66 podcast, and they had a story something like that. Tucum was one was the male part, and Carrie was a female part, and there was a love Romeo Juliet story with that one too. And they say that's how Tucumcari got its name. So I think that story must be.
It's a universal.
It's a universal story.
You use
but
it to fit your.
Right.
Well, and who knows? It may have happened 100 different times or 1,000 different times.
Well, because we know there's a record of so many of the Indian tribes did come there, and they were around here, but they came specifically for this reason. And then it was turned into a sanitarium where you could, like a hospital, you could go and you could bathe and you could drink. This was before the body cleansing fad hit us,
okay.
I mean.
So can you still use the springs? Are they?
No,
It's
it's
out in the
now
middle
on a
of the
lake,
lake.
right?
There's a buoy out marking the spot.
Oh, so now you got to dive down to it.
You see
Unfortunately, they bulldozed the hotel into. They had to cap the springs because it's a fresh spring, a freshwater lake, and so they couldn't have the salt water from the springs seeping into the lake. So they had to plug it.
Wow.
So that's the hardest.
Today, the lake would have been where some had tried to get it just a few miles, the dam, a few miles east.
That
or
seems
even
like it would have
west.
made more sense.
But, it depended on how powerful your influence was.
I mean,
To
politics
get-
played.
I mean, when we can change for a polywog or a whatever, because something was going to be put there. Now the Native American history.
They did put
Would have
in.
been a little
They did try to make it into a national monument for the Indians.
Right.
But in the '60s, the politics
It wasn't as
Right.
we
totally
didn't-
different.
It
Much
didn't
different.
mean as much then, and so that's why having the festival here and having them do it, and we can all learn.
Yeah.
Some of what we hear we don't like to hear, but it's history is what it is.
Right.
It isn't just it was,
Right.
it still is. But that's why you see the name Wakanda. It's called Wakanda Lake, Glen Elder State Park.
Okay.
But
One of the things about the springs was that the Indians would come and give offerings to the Great Spirit, which was in the water. And so they would toss things into the springs. And when they, drained it to work on it and get it ready, they had to clean it out when they made it into the sanitarium. They brought up a lot of artifacts. And unfortunately, all that stuff has been scattered. We don't know, where all that stuff is. Little by little, it's
but
just
there were lots of
disseminated.
arrowheads and beads. You could
Yeah,
walk around it.
They said that you could
And there
walk
was still
anywhere up there and find the Indian beads just everywhere. They were scattered everywhere. There were so many of them.
Wow.
That had been thrown.
So now we have made a replica. It was actually done some years ago, but it was never, technology and all things, they just like with that way, they learned with the building different things that should have been done a little differently. So now we have it fixed. So some of the original wrought iron fence is around it. And there's a mound, and there's not water in it. There will soon be because of the freezing. But as you walk up to it, you can learn like at least 8 tribes, the stories of them coming here. And tells the history of the springs itself, and then the dam building.
Yeah, the mound that they built is I think it was 20 or 21 feet high, and it's only a quarter size of the original pond. The spring itself. It's just a circular thing. But it does give you an idea of the elevation and the view that you would have had.
So the spring was up in a mountain, or
what happened was the spring would overflow, and so the minerals then would dry out, and it created layers, and it just kept building up.
Okay.
And so even though the riverbed was right next to it, there was the mound that the spring was on.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. We've got a town called Thermopolis in Wyoming that's got the world's largest mineral hot spring. And they drove pipes down like in the early 1900s, and that water would come out through the top, and then it created these great big mounds that we have there. The water's still coming out the top and building.
That's really
It's cool.
Well, it can't do it anymore because it's a big lake instead.
Well, let's go ahead and wind this down. It's been really enjoyable talking to you guys, learning about your town and about the ball of twine. That's the big thing here. But you've got a website or a Facebook page with the ball of twine. Why don't you tell us what those are? Ball of twine. It's not the ball of twine. It is just ball of twine.
Right.
Okay.
But the Facebook page.
And then you've got a website also?
No, we just link.
Okay.
They have our information from the county, Mitchell County Tourism.
Okay. And then Cawker City
has... The city of Cawker has a website.
And we're all linked together.
Okay.
I mean, there's links on each of the pages of the Cawker City and
I can tell you it's really easy to find. All you got to do is type in world's largest ball of twine in Cawker City, and all of it comes up on Google. That's the way that we found it several different times.
We are everyone's ball of twine. Now, the man in Minnesota that built his, they actually started them about the same time. But when he died, I mean, it's behind plexiglass. You go and you look at it.
You can't feel it?
Well,
this one here's hands-on.
Yes, as you can, they will take you in, and people can go in, but theirs is largest by one man.
Okay.
But we call ours the People's Ball.
I was going to say, because Linda shows up and hands you a piece of string and you get to add to it. I mean, this is an interactive experience here.
Yeah, right. Ours is living.
Yes, it is.
It's always different because every time you come, it'll be bigger.
That's right. So, anyway, well, I really appreciate you guys meeting with us today, talking to us and covering, we've covered a whole bunch, from Kansas to Cawker to the ball of twine, and now we're going to go over to the Monster Museum. I am excited about this. I've never been to a monster museum, and we're going to see what's happening over here at Matt's place.
Yeah.
But the way I like to finish these things out is I say the world is full of wonder. People need to get out and explore. There is things to see everywhere. And have an absolutely wonder-filled day.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?